Now, Gary, let's talk a little more about the unseen therapist.
Yeah, we've talked some about her before, and she's been covered in the Unseen Therapist book. But just as a reminder, she's the inner therapist within. She's part of us. She's part of all of us. Um, there's a feature about her that's very important to recognize if you're going to do your best with optimal EFT, and that is she is capable of doing anything. By that I literally mean she is capable of taking care of cancer like that in moments. She is capable of doing anything that you want her to do. Okay. However, what she will not do, and this is very important to recognize, is that she will not interfere with your free will to hide, repress, forget, or anything else, any issues that might be causing any kind of disease you may have or emotional problems and so on. She won't do that. That is interfering with your free will. That's a very unloving thing to do. We have a right to hide these things if we want to in our various ways. Okay. Now, a lot of these items we don't even know we're hiding.
Yeah.
We've just sort of forgotten them, or they're issues that we're so used to, they're just sort of routine. Or there might be something, well, I don't really want to look at that one right now. Okay? Or I've forgotten it, or I've repressed it a long time ago because I can live my life a little better if I don't think about that. Okay? There are lots of issues like that that are what we call under the table. So
They are unconscious, repressed, or the consciousness
well,
repressed.
they can be both, actually. Sometimes they're conscious, but like I said, they're so routine to us that we don't really consider them anymore. Like we may have had a very abusive situation clear back when we were 7 years old, and it still bothers us if we want to sit there and really dwell on it. Whoa. But we've sort of used to it, and we've sort of, in a way, forgotten it. But nonetheless, there's still some anger there, maybe, some resentment there, maybe, some guilt there, some grief, some fear, some other things going on. But it's so routine that we don't really think about it. Okay? So, what's really important here is that we need to, and this is where the therapist really comes in and is important in this. Mm-hmm. And we need to counsel with the client, just like you do, Sonia, and bring these things out of hiding, and we put them on the table. If they're on the table in plain sight and not hiding someplace, unseen therapist can take care of them very easily. Okay, but the real skill here is to find things and put them on the table. Now that's why this training in gold standard EFT is important, mm-hmm. because things like aspects, tabletop and table legs, specific events and things like that are all ways to get these things out of hiding and on the table. So it's very important. What we have here is a healing a healing process, a healing presence that can do anything. Our goal is to be able to communicate well with it. Our goal is to be able to take things that are out of hiding and put them on the table. That's the real skill here. The therapist, the unseen therapist, can do it all, but we have to help.
And you have to desire.
Well, sure. Yeah. You mean the client has to desire? Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yes. I don't know that desire is necessarily the right word, although I certainly see where that fits. But some clients, they don't even know they've repressed these things. They don't know they've forgotten these things, or they even resist talking about them because it's not comfortable. So they sort of, we don't do that. So the therapist then needs to get underneath that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes whether the client desires it or not, it can still get put on the table because the client can say, "Oh, I never thought about that way." That would be a form of what we call reframing and so on. Never thought about it that way and put it on the table. So the important thing is the unseen therapist can do anything. Our job is to learn to communicate. That takes practice. Communicate with the unseen therapist so that the issues are properly put on the table. Okay. Now, that isn't the kind of thing you just do overnight. It takes practice. Practice. Okay. But I think the question arises, Sonia, is what about the client who doesn't know anything about this, has no spiritual leanings whatsoever, doesn't care about any of that? Can we really help that client?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because they may not be as ready as perfection might suggest doesn't mean they can't be helped. They can. All they need to do really is be willing. But the more the therapist is involved in all of this, the more the therapist's communication, the more the therapist's spiritual presence begins to show up in the session and begins to be healing in and of itself.
The more, I think, the more the connection between therapist and client is more trustable. The connection is very deep and they are really friends. I think the identification between both can be deeper, and the unseen therapist feel more easy to come.
Yeah, and I think the more we practice these optimal EFT processes, the more the therapist begins to line up with their spiritual background, their spiritual being, and they become more and more and more friendly, if you will, more loving, etc. We have a name for that, and I don't know how well it translates into Portuguese, but I call it the pleasance of your presence starts to show up more and more. And not only is that helpful for the client, it's certainly helpful for you, because you walk around through your day with a lot more peace than you would ordinarily. That shows up in your sessions. It allows you to communicate better, and so on. So practice.
And when we are talking about self-help, when people are doing calling unseen therapists for themselves, and sometimes they don't know something about her own life. They forgot.
Yes.
Or this is a habit, a routine, and how this can be solved.
Well, when you're trying to do it on your own,
Yeah.
okay, just for yourself and not with someone else, you are limited to a degree, okay, because you don't have someone else like a therapist with the kind of skills to find the issues, put them on the table, and so on. So you're doing it on your own. But see, the unseen therapist is behind the scenes and more than willing to help whenever she can. Okay, always, always, always present, always, always, always eager. Her only problem is she needs to have. She can't take away your own things you want to hide. Okay, so you have to on your own, bring these things to the table. Yeah, but you can get a lot done with that, even if you don't. But now that brings us to something that's important, and that is love is the ultimate healer here, and love is best when shared. Now, can you do it yourself? Yes, many people do. Can you do it even better with somebody else, in groups of people where love is combined with others? Yes, and we're going to talk more about that a little later.